Hi, I'm Helen and welcome to Stories from the Art Room. This is episode 4 of a 3,320-year-old story of murder, and today we expose what motivated the men in the tragic tale of Queen Clytemnestra. If you wish to view earlier episodes, please follow the links above. But first, a piece of shocking evidence. It was the tradition in Clytemnestra's time for a matrilocal queen to marry a sacred king. This king only gets to rule for a year, or 100 months, or in some cases just for one day, before being sacrificed. The men lived like kings until their last hour. Then the king was stripped, scourged, hanged, or impaled between heaven and earth to shed tears and blood for fertility magic. Now, a conceptual power shift concerning the nature of blood offerings had been going on in religion for some time, and it came to a head during Clytemnestra's rule. You see, originally the most mysterious and impressive blood offering, centering religious beliefs, the provider of life, a libation for fertility, and a soma for regeneration of life after death, had been menstrual blood. And over time, gradually male sacrificial blood had been poured on altars in equally impressive imitation of the blood shed by women each moon month. The rule had become whatever is killed becomes father, also God and king. And if a woman ingested the flesh of a sacrificed man, it was thought she could become pregnant. The male victim joins in death with the original totem father, with the promise of apotheosis and privileged immortality through the gift of a golden apple. The myth that casts most light on the position of Clytemnestra concerns Tantalus, that guy who was punished by being placed tantalizingly out of reach of both food and water forever for sacrificing and then eating his son Pelops. Incidentally, Greece, even today, is known as the Peloponnese. Tantalus and Pelops are thought to be assumed titles for each generation in a succession of patricide. A man would have the title King Tantalus conferred upon him, but as time passed and the kings were gaining in power and position, the religious ritual was changing, so it could be the boy Pelops, or a less important man, or an animal like a horse or a goat that was killed and served up to the gods. In order to abolish this sacrificial cycle of males, the act of sacrificing Pelops was later made out to be a test of the omniscience of Zeus. So the myth of Tantalus and his punishment was basically a get-out cause to halt the practice of sacrificial cannibalism. I must admit, when I realised just how much human sacrifice was going on in Neolithic Greece, I was repulsed. It appears to have been just as prevalent as the blood rituals practiced by the Incas in South America. I'd also been persuaded by Marija Gimbutas, who was Professor of Archeology at UCLA during the 1960s, that matrilineal societies with a goddess were benign and non-violent until this idea was overthrown by Ken Wilber when his book Up from Eden was recommended to me by a fellow art student during my master's degree. Wilber describes a time about 3,000 years ago when human society had a collectively conscious structure which was being challenged by the emergence of the male ego. The king wanted to become cosmocentric while he was alive. Wilber argues that for the ego in men to fully awaken, they had to break the power of the Great Mother by avoiding reabsorption into the bodily material through sacrifice. This was a prolonged struggle until finally the hero kills the monster in myth who stands for the Great Mother. Let's pick up the story where a King Tantalus is married to the sister of Helen of Troy, a Spartan queen called Clytemnestra, after an ancient city called Mycenae in the Argolid was invaded by rich and powerful Spartans. This King Tantalus was killed, along with Clytemnestra's first child, still a babe in arms, by Agamemnon, who became her second husband by force. But we should bear in mind that the killing of one sacred king to be replaced by another wasn't that unusual. The tragedy of Clytemnestra is often called the House of Atreus, but Atreus is the cousin of Clytemnestra. His father was Pelops, a recent sacrificial king, while his mother was one of 16 local matrons who had won a foot race in the Heraclean Games to compete for the position of Hippodamia, high priestess at Hera's temple. Hera's name is inherent in the word inheritance. Hero is the Greek word for a man sacrificed to Hera, and in antiquity the word hero was also synonymous with ghost. Atreus had contrived a longer tenure as sacred king and somehow had avoided being sacrificed by doing a deal with Clytemnestra's father, Tyndareus, to marry his sons to her and her sister Helen. Each man would owe his kingship to their wives. After fathering 4 children, Agamemnon leaves to fight in the Trojan War and is away for at least 10 years. When he returns, Clytemnestra has taken a new sacred king, Aegisthus, which under matriarchal law she is entitled to do. Aegisthus means goat strength. Matrimony came to be synonymous with marriage only because marriage was the way men gained control of property. Next time I will be exploring the point of view of Orestes in this tragedy. He is the son of Clytemnestra and Agamemnon, and after his mother kills his father, he assassinates his mother. Please subscribe to to turn on notifications for episode 5, the trial of Orestes. So bye for now, and I hope to see you next time.